Hello, y'all. I'm going to explain Kratos' godhood and how it necessarily works, and why Kratos is considered a god and immortal, despite the fact that the developers have called him a demigod, despite the fact that he is confirmed to still be a demigod, and yet Cory Barlog, while claiming Kratos is a demigod, still also claims Kratos still a god and immortal. So then people kind of are confused and wondering, okay, so are the developers contradicting themselves? Are they just going back and forth, contradicting themselves about their own character and being unreliable? No, there is a lore-given reason as to why Kratos is considered a god, immortal, equally a god, yet still demigod. And I ended up reaching out to the developer Bruno Velasquez, who was co-director of God of War Valhalla. And I ended up reaching out to the developer, and I asked him, how exactly did Kratos regain his godhood after the events of God of War 2? Do you know? Because many other people were thinking that, hey, he gained his godhood and then lost it by draining his godhood into the Blade of Olympus, and then regained it back by getting the Blade of Olympus. Bruno kind of shuts down that entire idea by completely shuts down that concept that he ever gained, lost, and regained godhood. He immediately responds with, Kratos is the son of Zeus, therefore a demigod, so he has always been part god. When he drained his godly powers into the Blade of Olympus, those were the powers given to him to become the god of war. Those were powers that were given to him to become God of War. After that, he still remained a demigod, therefore a god still. When he tells Atreus he is a god, he's referring to his own godly half. So what Bruno essentially confirms here is that his godhood was not reliant on his godly powers. Those were a completely separate thing. Those were the powers specifically just given to him so he can specifically be God of War. Those powers. But that was not the ultimate source of his godhood. His godhood was being the son of Zeus. That was what made him still a god. But then that also raises the question, okay, so what about, how is he not mortal then? Because demigods, right, in Greek mythology even, are also considered mortal. Kratos was also called a mortal in the Greek games, and we always assumed that was because he was a demigod, therefore immortal. So how is that possible that he's equal on the same level as other gods and immortal? Is that a plot hole? People question whether that's a plot hole or not, and it's not. There's actually a lore-given reason as to why Kratos is on equal terms with the god, considered a god and immortal, despite the fact that he's a demigod. And I'm going to explain some lore-given reasons to this. In a very old game, Kratos is able to reach his divine potential as a demigod. And therefore, he's able to literally, in the process, transcend everything, being on the equal level of that a full, pure-blooded god would be. Then, in reward, he's given godly powers. I'm going to take you all the way to God of War Ghosts of Sparta. The game essentially confirms, in the beginning, the narrator says that Ares was dead, and though Olympus beckoned, visions of his mortal existence still haunted him. He is still connected to his mortal existence and still tied to it. This essentially confirms that Kratos is still a demigod during this installment. And while Kratos is seated as the god of war, he's still connected to and tied to his mortal existence, and he's having visions of his mortal life that still kind of haunt him. He ends up going on a search to find his mother. And again, this is a game that came after God of War 2 and 3 was already released. God of Ghosts of Sparta is an installment that comes after those two games were released, and it kind of delves into the concept of his divinity. It delves deep into his divinity and story and what really led him to be the god killer we knew in God of War 3. Kratos finds his mother, and there's a curse being placed on her that she could never tell Kratos of his divine nature. And if she were to tell him of his true divine nature, she would be forced to turn into a monster. Kratos was forced to kill her in the process of this. And it is stated that this had drove him to the very brink of madness. after he killed his mother. He then goes to find his only family that he even has left, Deimos, after his wife and his daughter were already killed because he was forced to while he was under the submission of Ares. His last family left, him and Deimos engage in a fight with Thanatos, the very primordial concept of death as well. Literally death itself. Thanatos, aka Death, proceeds to overpower Kratos. Proceeds to overpower both him and Deimos in the fight. And this is honestly expected, as Thanatos is the concept of death and going against two demigods. One very powerful demigod, but hasn't reached his full divine potential yet. So Thanatos is seemingly playing with both of them at this point. And then you will see that he ends up killing Deimos. Now, the only family he has left is now dead. Kratos' last family that he even has, his last connection is left. Kratos, now seeing his only family left being dead, Deimos is now dead, this causes him to burst into this uncontrollable godly rage where he emits this red glowing aura from his body, an explosion, and this shockwave that just shakes the entire world around him and pushes back Thanatos. Kratos is now empowered off of pure rage. And yeah, Kratos is like literally bloodlusted, pushed to his limits. This is and also the best iteration of Spartan rage, in my opinion. His entire body is in flames. He ends up overpowering Thanatos itself, overpowering death, and ends up defeating the very primordial concept of death itself in a fight, and physically overpowers him. After this, Athena tells him that it is now done. He turns around to look at her, and she says that he has now let go of all things that made him mortal. He has now broken free from the bondage of his mortality, broken free from the shackles of mortality itself. She tells him that his ties to the world are severed, therefore essentially saying that he is transcending the very world itself now. He has broken free from mortality, becoming immortal, and has transcended the world, thus putting him on basically equal terms with an Olympian god. He is above the mortal world. He is above mortality itself now, and now immortal. He has awakened his true divine potential. Athena also goes to tell Kratos that now, as this is all complete, and now that he has severed his connections to mortality, severed his connections to the world itself, he is now ready to be a true Olympian god. He has fully earned that right. Practically, Kratos as a demigod exceeds demigod limits and sets himself on that level of godhood. She tries to basically perform this ritual to give him his godly powers right then and there, his Olympian god of godly powers. He looks at her rage in his eyes and then pushes her off of him. And he says, "Is this all a game to you, Athena?" Halfway through the process of her performing this ritual, he tells him, "It is not over, Athena. The gods will pay for this." And this is the moment where Kratos became what we knew as the god killer. We do know that he did later end up still receiving those godly Olympian powers via God of War 2. But this also shows how Kratos as a demigod was able to exceed his mortal limits, was able to have his divinity completely unleashed. And as we know, we learn later in God of War 2 that he got that from Zeus. He inherited as being the son of Zeus. And Kratos, upon awakening this godly Spartan rage for the first time, this divine power that he inherited as the son of Zeus, when he awakened that power and awakened that divine potential, he transcended all shackles and bondages to the world and mortality itself, ascending to that level of a god, of a full-blood Olympian would be. He's at that level. This is why in the new games, Kratos is able to be referred to as a god in both Immortal. He is addressed as a god, despite the fact that he's a demigod, because he is on that same divine, equal level of pure-blooded god would be. Kratos shown to have the potential to exceed the limits of mortalhood and even exceed the Greek gods themselves. This explains also why in God of War 3, Kratos is able to overpower cosmic beings like Kronos and be on the same exact playing field as them, to be able to even harm them and beat them in the first place, and why he is able to defeat the Greek pantheon and fight against them on equal terms. I hope this helped.